Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Double Waved Yellows podcast. Today we are talking about the Qatari Grand Prix, and as always, Hodders and Tyson join me. Hodders, Tyson, how are you both?
Yep, doing good.
Good evening, and salam, as Qataris would probably say.
Indeed so, and it was an interesting race that we were treated to. Not ridiculously exciting, but obviously a highly important one in terms of the championship battle, which we will go further into shortly. But the main headlines: Hamilton wins his 102nd career race from Max Verstappen to close the championship point down to 8 points. Fernando Alonso caps off a fine weekend to have his first podium finish in 7 years. However, 4 punctures later on in the race did affect potential tyre strategy. So into the drive focus. Now we didn't do the draw for who got which driver last time on our previous podcast, but fair to say we did get some interesting results from the when the draw came out. Well, we've got both championship drivers in the mix there, but we'll talk more about that later on. So my first driver out of the hat was the Monegasque Charles Leclerc. Qualified 13th and started 13th. It was the Ferrari team found that he had a crack in his chassis, so they were able to make a free change for that in Parc Ferme. The Monegasque rose up through the field. Jeanette ended up finishing 8th. Most notably, a superb piece of strategy from Ferrari on lap 29 when they double stacked both of the Ferraris, no delays. Some really excellent pit work by the gentleman in red. Hodders, considering it was not a great qualifying for Leclerc, he made the best of it to get home and get some points.
He absolutely did. I mean, his qualifying wasn't the greatest at all. I mean, to only finish up in not making it to Q3 was not a great thing for Ferrari in the best of times. But he did parlay into 8th, and I have to say, further chapeau to the men in rouge in the pit wall. I watched the race live and the double stack. I think I actually applauded off mic. That was so smooth. 2.4 and 2.2 on a double stack cannot be sniffed at.
Yeah, Tyson, it's obviously been very risky to do a double stack because, of course, if the driver in front gets it wrong, it absolutely messes up your second driver. But some good strategy in Ferrari, which we haven't seen much of.
Yeah, it's always a gamble when you go for those double stacks. If, like you said, you don't pull it off, all kinds of things can go wrong, but they did it right, so all credit to them.
An important point in the Constructors' Championship battle, which we will talk more of later on. Meanwhile, to Hodders, and your first driver of choice was Lando Norris.
You sung it beautifully. Right? But yes, I had Lando Norris. He had a very solid qualifying. He qualified in P4, which is the sort of position we'd expect from him of late. And he's had a few wobbles in qualifying of late, but 4th is the sort of form we're used to expect from the young British driver. He was doing very well indeed, but unfortunately, he was the first driver to be hindered by punctures, or close to a puncture as well, but absolutely full credit to the pit wall at McLaren for bringing him in. Yes, it hindered him down to 9th place, but it did prevent the instance that happened to drivers later on in the race.
Yeah, that is a very, very good point there, Hodders. You know, they must have seen on the telemetry that the tyre was starting to go, and they obviously managed to get it in before the Pirelli went pop. Tyson, a sound performance from Lando, but unfortunately losing ground to Ferrari in the battle for 3rd place.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be just a disappointment for McLaren all round. They seem to be on good pace, just unfortunate with the puncture of the tyre, but these things happen.
Yeah, indeed. A bit of bad fortune there for Lando, but of course, where there is bad fortune, there must be good fortune, and I think Tyson certainly hit the jackpot with his his
I
driver
could say that
choice.
again.
And we'll go into a bit more detail later on. But your first driver that came out of that was the defending world champion Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, I should have bought a lottery ticket. So, Hamilton, well, qualified on pole position, led the race, won the race. So, let me just drop some interesting factoids here that I found out. This is Lewis Hamilton's third pole position in the last 16 races. The margin to Max Verstappen in qualifying to P2 was 0.455 seconds, which is the largest in a dry Q3 this season. And this is the most interesting one to me all through the hybrid era. Since 2010, in fact, the pole sitter at new circuits has always gone on to win the World Championship. And we're at the tail end of the season now. It's getting down to crunch time, and you can tell Lewis wants this. He just controlled the pace from the front all the way. Second win in a row after Brazil, and just had such an advantage over Verstappen that Mercedes, they could cover off Red Bull all day long.
Yeah, I think we could clearly see in the build up to qualifying, in particular, just Red Bull did not have the pace. But when it came to putting the absolute best possible lap in, especially in Q3, to have a gap of nearly half a second was just phenomenal. I mean, Red Bull must have been quite in for quite a shock on that one. Hodders, I think this has probably been one of Lewis's most dominant wins all season. Lights the flag, miles clear of Max during the race. It was just probably. I think it was a mix of Lewis Hamilton driving superbly and just Red Bull absolutely nowhere near.
Exactly. I mean, I think it was possibly aided a little by factors which will be covered later on the podcast, so I won't preempt those. But I think, to be quite honest, there was no looking past Lewis Hamilton all race, and I'm not his biggest fan, but fair play, he didn't put a foot wrong the entire race, even with the pits and everything else. The fact that he led all the way through shows that he is not to be written off yet.
Absolutely. And one thing that we should mention about Hamilton, which we on Double Waved Yellows fully applaud and support, was Hamilton's change of helmet design for this race and indeed the last remaining two races as well, in that he has put the LGBT flag in his colours to raise support and awareness for those in the community. Hodders, we fully applaud and support that sort of initiative here.
Oh, we absolutely do. I mean, we've had similar rainbow accoutrement among other drivers as well, but to have it on the helmet, particularly in the last few races where rights for those who are LGBT plus are still either non-existent or very limited, is highly commendable. That is the way to move things forward, through small, subtle, but visible gestures.
Absolutely, and long may those continue. Right then, on to the second round of drivers, and I'm really glad I got this one. My second selection was Fernando Alonso, and what a weekend the 2005-2006 World Champion had. Qualified in fifth, promoted to third following post-qualifying penalties, and he finished in third to get his first podium since the 2014 Hungarian Grand Prix, and at some points in the race he was up to second, including a bit of elbows out racing with Gasly and Max on the opening lap. Hodders will explain why, obviously, a little bit later on, but Alonso, rightfully so, voted fans' driver of the day.
Absolutely. He has had probably one of the best weekends he's had in a very long time, and certainly one of the best this season, if you include the podium position. He has been, I think, it's an opinion, I think all season he has been knocking on the door for those higher positions, and by gum did it pay off this weekend just gone.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tyson Fernando was saying afterwards he just wanted to keep driving around that track. It was a track he absolutely loved, and you could tell right from practice one he was dialed into that track.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've mentioned this before on the podcast. There were questions when he came back. Does he still
We did.
have that quality of a driver? And yeah, he's absolutely shown it this season. He's still got it.
We didn't mention that at all, did we? Whoops.
I think we questioned him coming back. I don't think we questioned his ability. We just thought
We never
we'll wait and
questioned
see.
his
I think I'm going to have to go and eat a slice of humble pie at some point.
We're happy to be proven wrong.
Yep.
I think we're delighted to be proven wrong on this occasion.
Bravo,
yeah.
Magnifico, Fernando. It was a super.
El plan worked.
Yeah, El plan did work indeed. Oh, if you haven't seen it, go and watch the mini drivers. Oh dear. Right, moving on. Quite nicely, actually, to Hodders, to Fernando's teammate Esteban Ocon, who also had an excellent race. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I think he's one of those drivers who seems to have had quite often this season through the joys of random number generation. But I was pleased as punch that Ocon did well. If not, I think it's his second best finish this season following his win in Hungary. He qualified in P9 and essentially I think he did a very strong supporting role, aiding and assisting Fernando Alonso to his third place. But to be fair, he did his own defending of his own as well. He was pushed very, very hard while in his eventual fifth place finish. He was defending right down to the final straight because I think he had a couple of drivers behind him well within DRS range for quite a few laps, but he was told elbows out, defend like a lion, and I think he's quite proud as a lion would be at his defence.
Yeah, absolutely. You just used to stole my my main throw-in line. Tyson, a fabulous weekend for both Ocon and the team as a whole, which we will elaborate on a bit later on. Really, really good drive.
Yeah, there's not much more I can add to that. Alpine just had a really good weekend, and I think with that they may have just cemented that fifth place in the Constructors' Championship.
Absolutely. Right, and Tyson, on to your second driver of your choice was the big grin from Danny Ricciardo, although not really a race to smile about.
Yeah, I don't think the grin will have been as wide this weekend. He only managed to qualify in P14 and only managed to gain 2 places in the race, which makes a third pointless race in a row for Ricciardo. According to him after the race, though, it was an issue with McLaren's data that forced him to save fuel from lap 1, which was the reason why he couldn't finish any higher. But yeah, just a disappointing weekend for him, especially after the high that was Monza, and it looked like he had finally got to grips with the McLaren. He was going to start putting some consistent results in. It just makes me wonder, have they gotten a little bit complacent now, or have they moved their resources forward to next year? Because Ferrari, Alpine, AlphaTauri, they're all still putting in the results. McLaren, they just seem to have slipped back a little bit.
Yeah, I mean that's a very valid point there. Hodders, teams are at the point now where they are really having to decide whether to push for those premium positions in the championship versus putting money and the resources into the car for next year. Does it feel like McLaren are moving towards their 2022 chassis?
Recent results do make me wonder whether if you'll pardon the expression, when they try to phone it in for the tail end of the season. They've got a reasonably respectable fourth place, almost guaranteed within reason, within the Constructors' Championship. They're probably happy. They probably should be happy to get third or should push for third. But I think, like other teams, they are waiting to see what 2022 brings.
Yeah, and it could well be that they are sort of honing resources to not only get third for next year's championship, but obviously we're going to see the gap close between Mercedes, Red Bull, and the rest of the field. How much we don't know. We will find out. On to the final set of drivers, and my third choice was Sebastian Vettel, and not really much to talk about in terms of he qualified 10th and started in 10th. He wasn't affected by the grid penalty type. And he finished in 10th, which actually wasn't too bad considering he had an absolutely appalling start, dropping 7 places on the opening lap. Although I think a bit of experienced driving, capitalising on mistakes and good strategy managed to get the German back into the points. Tyson, I'll come to you. Not really much for Seb to write home about on this one.
No, not really. I'm not sure what happened to him at the start. He just dropped back all those places, but he did get them back, and yeah, he got a point for it. So yeah, job well done.
Yeah, and Hodders, it's another point that Aston Martin not necessarily need, but is useful in terms of building finances ready for next season.
Absolutely, a point is a point, no matter how you earn it.
Absolutely. Moving on, Hodders, to your third driver, one of our favourites here, George Russell, and a really poor weekend for George. Mr. Saturday was just nowhere.
Yes, he wasn't really anywhere across the weekend as a whole. His practices weren't fantastic. He qualified position 15, which is, for him more recently, is not fantastic, although I do wonder whether Williams, like other teams, are starting to phone it in for the rest of the season, wait for 2022. Nevertheless, he did what he could in the middle positions, as Williams have done before, and then he did have the misfortune. I think he was the first driver to have a visible puncture, which didn't bode well, was forced to pit, finished in 17th in the end. And to be fair, unlike his unfortunate teammate, he was able to get back to the pits, but it wasn't the first or indeed the last puncture we had.
No, and it was bizarre seeing those punctures because
on the hards.
Yeah, well, yeah, even more so.
C1.
The most durable of the Pirelli tires, and it was just bizarre seeing them just go pop. Although Tyson, luckily, we didn't see anything that caused any sort of major accidents or spins. We did need a late virtual safety car because of all the gravel on the track, but Pirelli, for some reason, have had a lot of problems in the last couple of years with punctures caused by sort of excessive wear.
I think in this case it's more they were not expecting this track. It was a very late addition to the calendar, and there was so much load going into those tyres, very high speed corners. So I think when they go there next time, they will have a better idea of what tyres to bring, stronger, more durable tyres.
Which I think we're going to get next year regardless, but the fact that they bought the hardest possible Pirelli compound and it still went pop was quite surprising. Heavens only knows if they'd have bought the C5, C4, C3 compounds, that would have been a bit of a surprise.
Doesn't bear thinking about.
Well, no, it doesn't. And finally, Tyson, how on earth you got this? I think the odds would have been something ridiculous, like 1 in 132 off the top of my head.
Something like that.
You got both Hamilton and Verstappen in your pick. How you
Son of a gun.
Yeah, something. Well, I think that's the clean version. Tyson,
the check's in the mail.
Tyson, tell us about Max Verstappen's very eventful weekend.
Yeah, Verstappen did have an eventful weekend, to say the least. In qualifying, despite improving on his second time, he was still half a second behind Hamilton, as we said, but then he was given a 5-place grid penalty after the stewards found he failed to slow for double-waved yellows after Gasly's lone incident in qualifying 3, which was rude. We don't like being ignored here at double-waved yellows.
Oh,
no, we don't.
That meant he'd start the race from P7, and he didn't let it get to him. He managed to get up to P4 after getting past Sainz and Norris, and then got past Alonso and Gasly later on. Took him to P2 by lap 5, but then you could tell Red Bull were trying, but as I said, Mercedes just covered them off every turn. But good news for Verstappen, the late virtual safety car came out, and he took the opportunity to dive into the pit for soft tyres, and that allowed him to claim the fastest lap. At one point, referee's last one is counting now. It's getting crucial.
Yeah, thank you for nicking my ignoring double wave yellows. You both
welcome.
beat me
It's
to on
Creative
that one.
Commons.
Yeah, Creative Commons license, etc. Well, it wasn't just the fact that Verstappen. First of all, because just to explain, so he had his the lap time he set at the end of qualifying deleted because it's now an automatic. If you pass through a double wave yellow section during qualifying, that lap time's automatically deleted. So the stewards obviously missed something there. But yeah, when he ignored double waved yellow flags, that is one of the biggest no-nos. You do that during the race, it's usually a drive-through at least. For that. That's very, very poor from someone of Max Verstappen's caliber. And I think actually that's probably the best he could have expected to get the second place. Smart thinking by him and Red Bull to, as you say, pit under VSC to get the fastest lap at the end. Hodders, it was a bit of a messy Saturday for Max when he can ill afford to be making these mistakes with Hamilton starting to turn the screw here.
It was really messy, and I think I've been wondering this all throughout the week. Almost the week we've had in between. What you two think? I tended to prepare for this. I wonder if it hadn't been for the grid penalty, how close the margin might have been.
Or even would we have got some interesting activity into turn one? We will never know. So on to our winners and spinners. Time to discuss who had a memorable weekend and who had a race they'd rather forget. And Tyson and I are in agreement as to our winner of the weekend. It can only be Fernando Alonso. And all I'm going to say is welcome back to the podium, because Tyson, you've got a lot more notes on it than I have.
Yeah, well, it's the best qualifying performance Alonso's had this season, qualified Q5, and he finished on the podium. He's just shown he's still a driver to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and Hodders, we have to wonder if Fernando was in a Red Bull or a Mercedes or even a McLaren. Yeah, what sort of results could he be pulling off here? I mean, this weekend this season he's proven all of us completely wrong about whether he should come back or not.
He has completely vindicated himself and proven us completely wrong. Who knows what he could have in McLaren? I think would have been. I mean, a few podiums even pushing for a win here and there.
Yeah, indeed. So, and tying in actually quite nicely, Hodders, your win of the weekend. It wasn't a driver; it was the team, Alpine Racing.
It is. I mean, I could have gone for Alonso on his own, for just on his performance alone, but I feel like Alpine got everything absolutely right. I mean, Alonso, we've spoken about until the cows come home, but Esteban Ocon also very much did his bit, and I'm speaking not just because he was one of my drivers, but as a whole, he did defend hard. He was told elbows out, defend like line, and he did. He defended hard, he raced well, he achieved a position we should be seeing more of from the Frenchman, to be fair, but such is the way of things. And the whole team deserve a complete pat on the back for the whole performance and taking the 25-point lead over AlphaTauri at the same time.
Indeed, chapeau. But we've got some spinners to discuss, and all three of us have given it to teams this weekend.
I think this is a first.
This has got to be a first where we're picking on the teams, and I'm going to go first with my one. And my spinner. Spinning team of the weekend has to be Red Bull, and unfortunately it's for a lot of stuff that has happened off the track. The comments that are being made by the Red Bull owner Helmut Marko, team principal Christian Horner, and Max Verstappen, just the comments being aimed at Mercedes, the FIA, and this, which was completely below the belt, a comment by Christian Horner towards one of the volunteer marshals. Basically, without actually saying the words, basically accusing the marshal of waving double wave yellow flags just for Max Verstappen when only a single waved yellow flag was being shown for Valtteri Bottas, and quite rightly so. Horner was hauled in front of the stewards. He apologised to the marshal in person. He I say half-heartedly apologise, because he said, I apologise if there's any offence, because you shouldn't be saying that. You should be apologising full stop. You do not make those sorts of allegations, indirectly or otherwise, to the marshals, for goodness sakes. And I mean, he's also volunteered to give his time and go to the FIA stewarding training session at the beginning of next year. Hodders, there is a very clear line as to what comments you can and cannot make in the media, and Christian Horner well and truly crossed that line.
He crossed it a long time ago. I mean, this has been boiling over for some time. What he's been saying is morally reprehensible, and dare I say it, it's slander. It's libelous. I mean, I'm not saying if that steward wants to take any sort of action for words like that, I wouldn't blame them. He is rather going over the top. I mean, you could almost say, and not coming out here, he is almost accusing the steward of cheating.
It was the marshal. I mean, let's be clear.
The marshal. That is essentially accusing the marshal of not being fair and neutral when they absolutely are.
Yeah, I mean, just to explain, when the marshals are on the track, they are looking down the track if they're looking to wave yellow flags. Okay, so they're looking down, they're looking ahead of the track. They're saying, okay, what hazard is there? Is there a hazard? Do I need to be waving yellow flags? Okay, so highly likely the marshal is not going to be aware that it's Max Verstappen coming down the track. So yeah, this was thoroughly unpleasant to read and to listen to. Tyson Hodders just alluded there. This has been boiling quite a fair bit, predominantly from Red Bull ever since the Silverstone incident. Do you think we're at the point now where we need the senior figures like Michael Massey, the race director, and even the FIA president, Jean Todt, to stop in and say, hey, you are detracting from what is actually a really good on-track championship battle. Be very careful with your comments, because you've already had one visit to the stewards. Don't do it again.
I think maybe they do need to step in and have a word with him about this, but real talk, I am honestly not surprised. It's pretty ironic that Verstappen used the phrase Mercedes are showing their true colours, because following the sport over the years, this has been classic Red Bull ever since they became a championship contending team. Now, I'm going to be fair about this. It's a highly competitive sport. There's a lot at stake. Money, reputation, a lot of returns on what they've invested into this.
Agreed.
And emotions. And it's sport as a whole.
Yeah, I respect that. And, at this level, things do get a little bit heated, especially when you've got a championship that is going down to the wire like this is. And honestly, I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy a little bit of drama, but there is just something fundamentally wrong with Red Bull as a team. They are perfectly approachable when things are going their way. They're very accessible and welcoming to the media. They give them time, interviews, where other teams are, a little more private, more secular. But when things aren't going their way, this is what we see from them. We see public tantrums. They try to shift and apportion blame anywhere but themselves. We've seen them blaming their junior drivers for things that are going wrong, for goodness sake. And Horner, honestly, he's only gotten worse since becoming a personality through Netflix and Drive to Survive. He is a real hot take for me. It takes a special kind of leader of a team to alienate those fans who wanted to, and they were excited to see the Mercedes domination coming to an end this year. Some of those same fans are now actually cheering for Mercedes. They want to see Red Bull get taken down and put in their place. And I just think, Horner, he really needs to rein himself in. The whole team do, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, we've said we don't want the Drivers' Championship, nor, to be fair, the Constructors' Championship settled in the stewards' room. But we could see some very unprecedented suspensions handed out to not necessarily just Red Bull, but any sort of team personnel who cross the line. I think we will put an end to it. It's turned into a bit of a rant, which we don't want on here, but it is something that, for me personally, attacking volunteers, especially during the FIA Volunteer Week, and we must give thanks to the thousands of marshals all around the world who help motorsport work at all levels, from the very basic levels like karting and what have you, to those at the very, very top. And actually, we should give a mention to someone who saw our post on Twitter, the inaugural recipient of the Charlie Whiting award. And I'm just going to try and find it on my Twitter, because where's it gone? So I will be there in a minute.
This proves we record this live,
Yeah, we absolutely record it live. Yeah, like from here we go. Jeanette Tan, who is an FIA race director. She is a race director in the FIA World Endurance Championship, and she was the inaugural winner of the Charlie Whiting Award. So great stuff to see. But basically, from all of us here at Double Wave Yards, a massive thank you to all of the volunteers, not just the marshals, but those who work in the pit lane, the medical staff, and all that lot. Anyway, moving very quickly onwards, because this is going downhill very quickly. And unfortunately, we're going to pick on Red Bull's sister team now, AlphaTauri. Hodders, this one's yours.
Well, I'm afraid there's a couple of reasons. I mean, I think they were very underwhelming. Not a single point scored, which means that Alpine took an advantage there, which is not what they wanted when it was so close with 2 or 3 races to go. I also wasn't too keen on Gasly making way for Verstappen earlier on in the race. That smacked of team orders by the back door, and I know it happens, but I don't like it.
It's team orders we don't like, but we respect that they are going to happen within motorsport. But Tyson, again, is this crossing a line when it's between teams? You've got team orders involved.
Yeah, I really don't like the idea of inter-team orders being a thing. Just team orders within a team, yeah, that's a natural part of the sport. Yeah. I accept that, but when you're getting other teams involved, sister team or not, yeah, there's just something a little distasteful about that to me.
Hopefully, we won't see it continue, but I fear we may going into the final few races. And finally, Tyson, for you, don't worry. Dietrich Mateschitz, we're going to stop picking on the Red Bull entity as a whole. We don't mean in a bad way. But Tyson, your spinner was actually the team down the back of the grid, Williams.
Yeah, just a weekend to forget for them. I questioned it at the time why they were left out after seeing that Bottas's tyre was gone, and it was inevitable it was going to happen to them as well. So, yeah, just a really bad weekend for Williams.
But even more so, when they saw it happen, I think it was Russell who had it first. Why they left Latifi out? But yeah, not great. Right, let's move on. Move on to our talking points, and of course, as usual, we start with Max versus Lewis, round 20. And credit has to be given to Max, a great recovery drive to go from 7th, and he must have been thinking this might be a bit tricky, to superb start up to P4, battle his way up to 2nd, and getting the fastest lap. Tyson, we use the phrase a lot, recovery drive, but credit where it's due, Max did really, really well.
Yeah, absolutely. It was good damage control. That penalty that started in 7th, anything could have happened there, but he got through it. He got the points, and yeah, good job to Max.
Absolutely. Hodders, we touched on it very briefly. Could Max have actually won this race without the grid penalty?
It's very difficult. I mean, hindsight is a wonderful thing. I think had he been 2nd on the grid, I think it would have been plausible. Not saying it would have been quite possible, but certainly more plausible. We don't know what the gaps could have been like and how it would have been into turn 1.
and also obviously strategy would have been changed
Yes.
as well. Right, so we're going to have a look at the championship standing shortly, but first of all, now that we are into that territory, we have to look at the championship permutations. With 2 races to go and an 8-point lead, Max Verstappen has the chance to wrap up the World Championship in Saudi Arabia. So here's the permutations on screen, and for those who are just listening, I will just run through it. So Verstappen will win the 2021 Formula One World Championship if Verstappen finishes first and gets the fastest lap, Hamilton must finish 6th or lower. If Verstappen just wins the race, Hamilton needs to finish 7th or lower. If Verstappen gets second and the fastest lap, Hamilton needs to finish 10th. And if Verstappen comes home in second, Hamilton will need to fail to score for Verstappen to win the championship. So basically, if Verstappen is either third or lower, or Hamilton is 5th or higher, then it goes to the final round. Verstappen essentially needs to open up his championship lead by 22 points to increase it to 26, because then even if Hamilton wins and gets the faster, Verstappen fails to score in Abu Dhabi, Verstappen will win the championship on count back. So let's have a look at the championship standings. As mentioned, with 2 races to go, Verstappen leads on 351.5 points from Lewis Hamilton on 343.5 points. Bottas on 203, but Sergio Perez closing the gap. Sergio on 190 points. Lando Norris on 153. Leclerc just 1 point behind now on 152. Is that mistake at Russia going to cost Lando dearly? Carlos Sainz not far behind either on 145.5 points. Daniel Ricciardo on 105. Pierre Gasly on 92. And Fernando Alonso, with that brilliant podium, is up into 10th on 77 points. In the Constructors' Championship, it's still just as close there. Mercedes 5 points clear on 546.5 points. Red Bull on 541.5 points. Ferrari almost safe now in third with 297.5 points. McLaren on 258, so a gap of nearly 40 points there. Alpine on 137, AlphaTauri on 112, so a 25-point gap there. Aston Martin fairly secure there on 77, Williams on 23, Alfa Romeo on 11, and Haas again failing to score. So we've briefly touched upon Christian Horner's comments, and I think we're just going to sort of expand it a little bit and sort of generalise it. I think it's fair to say we think the punishment that Christian Horner has got has fitted the crimes, but overall across social media, the drivers, the team managed, Hodders, do they need to be a bit more careful of what they say to the media, what they put on social media, because now that we've got the precedent set?
Yeah, I think the precedent has been set, and I think it will send a message out to teams and individuals that they do need to watch what they say. They are in the public eye, and whatever you say, words. I think the term to think about, I'm going to amend a slight World War II phrase here, is that careless talk costs reputations.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Tyson, we want the banter and the fighting talk to remain, though, so there has to be the right balance.
Yeah, we do enjoy the banter and the drama, but obviously when comments are getting taken too far, like they have been this weekend, that's no good.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And let's talk about the circuit, the Losail circuit. It was a MotoGP track, so some drivers have been watching previous races just to get an understanding how it works. Some of the drivers have raced on the track in the lower formulas. Hodders, what did you think of the circuit as a whole?
I enjoyed the circuit. I mean, I had a feeling it was going to be a fast one. I mean, when I first heard it was originally a MotoGP circuit, I was umming and ahhing, wondering what it would be. But I think this race has proven that it's a very, very good circuit. It's fast. It's got the straights that you need. There's enough turns. There were worries as to whether overtaking would happen much on a circuit like that, but they did happen, and it was an enjoyable circuit, and I look forward to next time.
Yeah, absolutely. Tyson, as we said, we were wary of overtaking, but we saw it not just down the straight, we saw it inside, outside, not quite upside down and side to side, but but it was a thrilling race. There was battles all the way through the field.
It was, and I was pleasantly surprised. I thought this little narrow bike track, we're not going to see a lot of overtaking, but we did, and it was really good to see those battles happening on track.
Yeah, absolutely so. Still on a little bit of rant mode, but we're moving away completely from Red Bull. The stewarding decisions that we saw both this weekend and at the previous event in Brazil. We are seeing a lot of cases where matter of fact offences are being seen, and yet the stewards are taking a very long time. They're waiting until the following day to make those decisions. Hodders, I'll come to you, but this is very frustrating when it's almost, we're seeing qualifying and we're having to wait until an hour before the start of the race to know what the starting grid is.
It's very frustrating for everyone. I think it's not just for us, but also for the major broadcasters as well, who obviously like to be as accurate as we can. But you can't really do a great deal of prep when you haven't got the information to go off. You're going in almost blind. And as you said, when it's matter-of-fact decisions that are clear-cut, obvious, and straightforward, you would think they would issue the judgments in a timely, let's say, a more timely manner.
Absolutely. But on top of that, Tyson, there are big things at stake here. We're seeing these matter of fact decisions are affecting primarily the drivers at the front of the field, and in the championship battle, they need to make sure that the appropriate sanction is issued, because no steward wants to incorrectly affect the outcome here.
And that's the point that I was just going to make. You don't want to be that person who's made a decision that's potentially cost someone a championship in the long run.
Yeah, and in the wrong way, of course. Stewards, if they need to make a decision, they will make it. But obviously, they don't want to make the wrong decision. Right. We are now going to do our draw for the driver focus. We're going to do it, live and uninterrupted here on Double Wave Yellows.
Please do not swear. Not that we do anyway.
Bleep that. Right. So one thing we are going to do is, primarily because Tyson got blimmin' lucky, but also because we are coming down to crunch time for the championship battle, none of us are going to be allowed to have either Hamilton or Verstappen, because we're going to just do a bit more reporting on them as we go into the final two races. So I've got all the drivers, all of the 18 drivers listed in random.org. I've listed them in championship battle, in championship order to start with. So I'm going to shuffle my grid up and let's see what I get. Right, so I need to actually cross-reference with actually the drivers I've had from this weekend.
Is standing by at this end too.
Okay, good stuff. So first driver out I've got is Ocon.
That's fine.
Second is Bottas.
Okay.
Third would have been Vettel, who I've had.
But you had him last time.
So the fourth one would have been Latifi.
Mm-mm.
So Ocon, Bottas, and Latifi are my choices. Okay, so Hodders, you got all that noted for us?
Yep, I have.
Okay, so obviously Ocon, Bottas, and Latifi you can't have. Let's hit the shuffle button again, and it gives us, this will be good, Giovinazzi.
Okay.
Norris, which you've just had. Bottas, which
we've already gone.
Alonso.
Well, there's a churn up the books.
Ocon, which you've just had.
Again.
Russell, which you've just had. Leclerc.
Who you just had, but I can have.
Yeah, you can have Leclerc. I think that's all three, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Yeah, we had to think about that one. Oh, dear. Right. And finally, for Tyson.
Sunny night.
Right, Latifi, you can't have him because I've got him. Vettel, I've just had, so you can have him.
He's eligible, yep.
Mm-hmm.
And Stroll,
who is perfectly open. Yep.
and Schumacher.
Who you can also have.
Hey, there we go. Cool stuff. Excellent.
No dispute not required.
Indeed so. Right. Okay, so on to final thoughts. And for me, this championship battle is really shaping up to be a bit like 1994. There's a lot of controversy surrounding it, and particularly what's been happening off the track. But this is really going to the wire. Hodders, are we going to see this title decided in Saudi Arabia, or is it going right down to a duel in the desert, so to speak, in Saudi Arabia, in Abu Dhabi? Sorry.
It's a very difficult one to call. I think it may end up going to Abu Dhabi, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Tyson?
Yep, I think this is going to go down to the last race, Abu Dhabi.
Mm-hmm. Let's hope so. We don't want the championship decided early, but if that is the case, then so be it. Indeed, so that is it for our podcast. Tyson Hodders, as always, many thanks for your contribution today.
Cheers.
Of course, go on.
No, just saying cheers.
All right.
I
thought you were bringing some breaking news all of a sudden, but no. So obviously no race this coming weekend. We've got the week off before we lead into the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix the following weekend. We're back in 2 weeks' time to review that race before leading into the grand final, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Last and by all means, or by no means least, my thanks to you for watching and for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave us a comment, follow us on Twitter at DWavedYellows. Be good, and if you can't be good, be safe from all of us here. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.